A part of the conversation here, Capital Region wide, really, has been the Siena Saints. It is a legitimate story that has legs. That one of the 23rd ranked mid major in the entire country preseason, returning all 5 starters, the only program with 4,000 point scorers, same coach, same players from a team that won 21 games last year, is 0-9 on the road, 4-10 overall. Not sure how to quantify this season, Chris, but we can get a little bit more context when we talk to Robert Lee, who has been the voice of Siena basketball for well over a decade. General, how has it been, like 13 years or something like that?
This is year 15, actually. So I actually started when I was 10. It's amazing. Really, it's a prodigy, you know.
Well, I'm sure you folks have seen Robert Lee on the Time Warner broadcast. You've heard him on the radio each of the past 14 years leading up to this year, now only doing the television games at home. But you've seen this program, Robert, more than anyone else. How do you quantify this season thus far?
You know, it's obviously been very disappointing. I think everybody surrounding the program, whether it's folks like me or coaches or administrators or players, they're not happy with the way the season's turned out so far. I think this was definitely the highest expectations for the team, definitely since the last title team back in 09-10. So you're looking at about 7 years. You know, expectations were high. Everybody thought the team was going to contend for the title, and they still might. But it's hard to put a finger on it. They just haven't really clicked. It's, even in some of the wins, I know I was there for the Arkansas Pine Bluff game, and that was, that team was just really poor. And even though Siena won by, probably 20, 25 points, you didn't leave thinking, wow, that was a juggernaut-like performance. That was just more, that team was just really bad, and, it didn't leave you feeling really good about it. And I don't know. When you say quantify, it's just been tough to quantify. You talk about all the talent the team has and all the stats the returning guys have put up, but it just hasn't gelled together.
And as you watch these guys on the floor, is there something that pops out at you in the actual content of the basketball game itself that you say, okay, there's an issue here?
It's funny because my wife always talks about things like spirit and heart, in relation to Siena basketball, and she's been a fan since, she met me about 10 years ago. And, I always kind of poo-poo that stuff, and, I'm more into the stats or the defense or who's shooting the ball well, but the kids don't look like they're having a lot of fun. And I think that's the thing that really jumps out at me when you see them playing. There's good players, there's talent there, but they don't seem to be really enjoying it. And, and Coach Patsos, he hammers away the same 2 phrases all the time. Play hard, have fun. That's his team motto. He says that all the time, and that's really what it's about for him. Play as hard as he can and have a good time doing it. This is not, some serious venture. This is playing basketball. It's supposed to be fun, and they just don't really look like they're enjoying it individually. They're not enjoying it as a team. And listen, you guys get it. Everybody likes winning. That's fun. But, they just don't seem to be really, just getting after it and being like a bunch of guys who love going out there and playing with each other. That's kind of what I see.
Robert, they've played 9 of 15 on the road. They played a quote-unquote home game in Glens Falls. So as they get into conference play, they obviously play a bunch of games at the Times Union Center, which you'll be a part of. Through 14 games, though, General, do you feel like the expectations or I guess the barometer for success has changed, where we entered this season saying they better make the NCAA tournament, they better win the MAC championship, they're 4-10. Do you now feel like, okay, we need to do this in order for it to be a successful season?
Not really. The goal is still to win the MAC championship. There's certainly no reason the team can't get it turned around and do that. They're 1 game out of first place right now.
Right.
Very early in the conference season. I don't think expectations have changed. I think it would still be very disappointing if this team didn't at least make a serious run at not only the regular season title, but the MAC championship as well. I'm not a huge, we just play for 3 days. I think you play the whole season to build up to those 3 days. And, a lot of the talk was, conference play starts now. And while I do believe that is a chance to wipe the slate clean, I don't think you can just say, okay, well, we're going to flip the switch and start trying harder or playing better now. It doesn't just work that way, you know. And by all accounts, yesterday's game was a much improved effort and performance, and losing to Canisius is having a good year. But, my expectations haven't changed. I expect the team to be there possibly on Monday night in March playing for the championship. And whether it gets to that point, nobody knows. But, I don't think people are thinking, oh, well, they're just hoping to have a good year now. I mean, this is the year they've been pointing for.
Mm-hmm.
Robert, if you had a fictitious concern meter, 1 through 10, how concerned are you right now about Siena?
I'd say 8 or 9. It's very concerning. I think like everybody else who's been around the program, I thought the team was going to be very, very good this year. I mean, every possible way you could look at it, the team was going to be good. They were going to be a contender, regardless of how good the rest of the teams in the MAC were. And I know the non-conference schedule has proven to be, frankly, a little more difficult in terms of how good the teams were than I thought it was going to be. Sure, there's the Kansases, the George Washingtons, but a lot of the teams you don't pay any attention to, you think, or Asheville or Hofstra or Vermont or even Albany, you're thinking those teams, those are teams that Siena should beat. Well, in hindsight, those teams are all doing pretty well, surprisingly or not. So, the record is definitely concerning. But no, there's definitely concern. I think not so much because of the record, but how they're losing some of these games. I mean, the Hofstra game, which I watched, online, the Vermont game, which I saw in person, those, you never had the feeling that Siena was really even going to compete in those games or give those teams a run. They were just one-sided affairs, and it's just, that in itself is disappointing because there was so much, and there is so much potential in this team.
Robert, the passion that Siena fans have, and certainly I know a lot of them will be, wondering what the future of Coach Patsos is. But what should the future of Coach Marvin Lewis be in Cincinnati?
That's the hard question there. I mean, the guy turned the Bengals from a complete laughing stock for most of my life into a very respectable and even in some ways envied franchise because they made the playoffs 5 years in a row. There's a lot of teams. Zach's Bills, I think you're a Bills fan, they would love to make the playoffs 2 years in a row. So it's tough to say. I think he's taking them as far as he can take them personally. I don't think he'll ever get them to the Super Bowl or even close. But I give the man a lot of credit. He's turning them from a complete laughing stock into a very respectable franchise. But sometimes the message just gets stale.
Yeah.
Like, I look at like a Tom Coughlin.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't forget it. He didn't forget how to coach last year. Sometimes it's just time for a change. The message gets stale. It's time to move on. And I think that's the way it is in Cincinnati. Do I think they'll get rid of him or he'll leave? No, I don't. But, it is what it is.
Diehard Bengals fan.
His name is Robert Lee. He's been the voice of Siena Saints basketball since he was 11 years old. He's in his 15th year. You can catch him on home games on Time Warner Cable Sports Channel. Thanks for dropping by, Big Board Sports General.
Good to hear your voice, buddy.
Appreciate it, guys. Anytime.